Hello everyone, and welcome back to Deep Chronicles World. I know many of you use these videos to help you relax and fall asleep. So before you drift off, let's do something fun. Take a moment to leave a comment and share where in the world you're listening from. I'd love to hear from you. If you're enjoying the stories, don't forget to like the video and hit that subscribe button. It really helps. Now, let's get cozy, unwind, and dive into tonight's tale. Ready? Let's begin. Mafia's influence extended far beyond the world of crime, as its story has captivated the public imagination and inspired countless works of art, literature, and entertainment. From movies like The Godfather and Goodfellas to television shows like The Sopranos, the Mafia has become a cultural icon, synonymous with power, loyalty, and betrayal. These portrayals, while often romanticized, have shaped public perception of organized crime, presenting the Mafia as a complex and multifaceted institution. The Mafia's code of honor, its emphasis on family and loyalty, and its ability to operate outside the law have made it a compelling subject for storytellers who have used it to explore themes of power, ambition, and the human condition. At the same time, these portrayals have also been criticized for glamorizing violence and criminality, and for perpetuating stereotypes about Italian Americans. Despite these criticisms, the Mafia's cultural impact is undeniable, as its story continues to resonate with audiences around the world. The Mafia's legacy is not just a story of crime. It is a story of culture, identity, and the power of storytelling to shape our understanding of the world. It is a story that continues to unfold as new generations of artists and audiences discover the Mafia's history and its enduring appeal. For decades, the Mafia operated with relative impunity, its power and influence seemingly untouchable. However, by the mid-20th century, law enforcement agencies, particularly the FBI, began to take a more aggressive approach to combating organized crime. The turning point came in 1970 with the introduction of the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations RICO Act, a groundbreaking law that allowed prosecutors to target the entire organization rather than just individual members. Under RICO, the FBI could charge Mafia bosses for crimes they ordered, even if they didn't personally commit them. This legal tool, combined with advances in surveillance technology and the cooperation of informants, gave law enforcement the upper hand in their fight against the Mafia. One of the most effective tactics used by the FBI was wiretapping, which allowed agents to eavesdrop on the Mafia's conversations and gather evidence of their criminal activities. The FBI's success in wiretapping was due, in large part, to the work of agents like Joe Pistone, who went undercover as Donnie Brasco and infiltrated the Bonanno family, and Bruce Mao, who led the investigation into the Gambino family. These agents risked their lives to gather intelligence and build cases against the Mafia, often working for years to gain the trust of their targets. Another key factor in the FBI's success was the use of informants, or rats, turned against the Mafia in exchange for leniency or protection. Some of the most famous informants included Sammy the Bull Gravano, who testified against John Gotti, and Joseph Alagi, whose testimony in the 1960s exposed the inner workings of the Mafia to the public for the first time. These informants provided the FBI with invaluable information, but their cooperation came at a cost, as they were often ostracized by their former associates and forced to live in hiding. The FBI's efforts culminated in a series of high-profile trials in the 1980s and 1990s, including the Commission Trial of 1986, which saw the leaders of all 5 families indicted and convicted on charges ranging from racketeering to murder. These trials marked the beginning of the end for the Mafia, as its leadership was decimated and its operations disrupted. However, the fight against the Mafia was not without its challenges. The Mafia's code of silence, or made it difficult for law enforcement to gather evidence, and the organization's deep roots in the community made it resistant to outside interference. Despite these obstacles, the FBI's persistence and innovation ultimately paid off, as the mafia's power and influence were significantly weakened by the end of the 20th century. The story of the FBI's war on the mafia is a testament to the power of determination and ingenuity, as well as a reminder of the importance of holding those who abuse power accountable. It is a story that continues to resonate today, as the legacy of the mafia's influence can still be seen in the industries they once controlled, at the city they once ruled. The mafia's golden age came to an end in the latter half of the 20th century, as a combination of internal strife, external pressure, and changing societal norms eroded its power and influence. The high-profile trials of the 1980s and 1990s, including the commission trial and the conviction of John Gotti, dealt a devastating blow to the mafia's leadership and operations. These trials exposed the inner workings of the mafia to the public, shattering its aura of invincibility and undermining its code of silence. The loss of key leaders, either through imprisonment or death, further weakened the organization, as younger, less experienced members struggled to maintain control. At the same time, the mafia faced increasing competition from other criminal organizations, such as drug cartels and street gangs, which were more adaptable and less bound by tradition. The rise of these groups, combined with the mafia's reluctance to embrace new technologies and business models, left it increasingly marginalized in the world of organized crime. The mafia's downfall was also hastened by changing societal norms, as the public became less tolerant of corruption and violence. The media's portrayal of the mafia as a glamorous and romanticized institution gave way to a more critical and realistic view, as the true cost of its crimes became apparent. The mafia's legacy, however, continues to linger, as its influence can still be seen in the industries it once controlled and the city it once ruled. The story of the mafia's downfall is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of holding those who abuse it accountable. It is a story that continues to resonate today, as the lessons of the past inform our understanding of the present and shape our vision for the future. While the mafia's power and influence have significantly diminished since its heyday, its legacy continues to linger in the shadows of modern society. The five families of New York still exist, but they are a far cry from the powerful empires they once were. Today, their operations are more discreet, their ranks thinner, and their influence limited by the relentless efforts of law enforcement and the changing dynamics of organized crime. However, the mafia's impact on contemporary criminal organizations cannot be ignored. The structure, discipline, and code of conduct that define the mafia have been adopted by other groups, such as drug cartels, street gangs, and international syndicates. These organizations have learned from the mafia's successes and failures, adapting its methods to suit their own needs while avoiding the mistakes that led to its downfall. The mafia's legacy is also evident in the industries it once controlled, such as construction, waste management, and labor unions, where its influence can still be felt in the form of corruption, kickbacks, and organized crime beyond its criminal activities. The mafia story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of holding those who abuse it accountable. It is a reminder that no organization, no matter how powerful or seemingly invincible, is immune to the forces of justice and change. The lessons of the mafia's rise and fall are as relevant today as they were in the past, offering valuable insights into the nature of power, corruption, and the human condition. The mafia's legacy is not just a story of crime. It is a story of resilience, adaptation, and the enduring struggle between good and evil. It is a story that continues to unfold, as the lessons of the past inform our understanding of the present and shape our vision for the future. The mafia's influence is not confined to the streets of New York or even the borders of the United States. Its legacy has had a profound impact on global organized crime and international law enforcement. The structure, discipline, and operational methods pioneered by the mafia have been adopted by criminal organizations worldwide. From the Yakuza in Japan to the Russian mob and Latin American drug cartels, these groups have taken the mafia's blueprint and adapted it to their own cultural and geopolitical contexts, creating a global network of organized crime that transcends borders and operates with alarming efficiency. The mafia's emphasis on secrecy, loyalty, and hierarchical organization has become a model for these groups, enabling them to evade law enforcement and maintain control over their operations. At the same time, the mafia's downfall has served as a cautionary tale for these organizations, many of which have learned to avoid the mistakes that led to the mafia's decline, such as high-profile violence and internal betrayal. The fight against the mafia also played a pivotal role in shaping international law enforcement efforts. As agencies around the world began to collaborate more closely to combat organized crime, initiatives like Interpol, Europol, and joint task forces have been established to share intelligence, coordinate investigations, and dismantle transnational criminal networks. The lessons learned from the mafia's rise and fall have informed these efforts, leading to the development of new strategies and technologies for tracking and prosecuting organized crime. In the 21st century, the mafia's legacy continues to evolve, as its influence can be seen in the rise of cybercrime, human trafficking, and other modern forms of organized crime. These new threats, while different in nature, share many of the same characteristics as the mafia's operations, including a reliance on secrecy, corruption, and violence. The fight against these threats requires the same level of innovation, collaboration, and determination that was used to dismantle the mafia. The mafia's story is a reminder that the battle against organized crime is never truly over. As new challenges and adversaries continue to emerge, it is a story that underscores the importance of vigilance, adaptability, and the relentless pursuit of justice. The mafia's global influence and legacy in the 21st century are a testament to the enduring nature of organized crime and the ongoing struggle to combat it. It is a story that continues to resonate, offering valuable lessons for the present and the future, and reminding us of the importance of holding those who abuse power accountable. No matter where they operate or how they evolve, the mafia story is not just a tale of crime and corruption. It is a reflection of broader social, economic, and political forces that have shaped human history. From its origins in the struggles of Italian immigrants to its rise as a powerful criminal empire, the mafia's history is intertwined with the story of America itself. It is a story of ambition and resilience, of individuals and communities, striving to overcome adversity and achieve success, even if it meant operating outside the law. The mafia's rise to power was fueled by the same forces that drove the growth of cities like New York: industrialization, urbanization, and the pursuit of the American dream. At the same time, the mafia story is also a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of corruption. The mafia's influence on public discourse about crime and justice cannot be overstated. Its story has sparked debates about the nature of power, the role of law enforcement, and the balance between individual freedom and collective security. The mafia's portrayal in popular culture has shaped public perceptions of organized crime, often blurring the line between reality and fiction. While movies like The Godfather and Goodfellas have romanticized the mafia, they have also raised awareness of its impact on society and the importance of combating organized crime. The mafia story has also influenced the way we think about justice, as it highlights the challenges of holding powerful individuals and organizations accountable. The fight against the mafia has led to significant changes in the legal system, including the development of new laws and investigative techniques that have been used to combat other forms of organized crime. The mafia's place in the broader narrative of human history is a reminder that the struggle between good and evil is a timeless theme, one that continues to shape our understanding of the world. The mafia story is a testament to the complexity of human nature as it reflects both the best and worst of what we are capable of. It is a story of ambition and betrayal, of loyalty and violence, of power and corruption. It is a story that continues to resonate, offering valuable lessons for the present and the future. The mafia's cultural and historical significance is a reminder that the past is never truly behind us, as its legacy continues to inform our understanding of the world and our place in it. It is a story that underscores the importance of learning from history, of holding those who abuse power accountable, and of striving to create a more just and equitable society. The mafia's story is not just a story of crime. It is a story of humanity, a story that continues to unfold as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of the modern world. Now, it's time for sleep. See you tomorrow. From the 1920s onward, the mafia and organized crime in general have retained a hold on the popular imagination. Bank robbers, bootleggers, and mafia dons have received considerable press, not all unfavorable. Cast as anti-heroes, fictional, and real-life mobsters like Al Capone, Vito Corleone, and John Gotti have often been portrayed in a sympathetic light, drawn with a romantic touch. Literary and cinematic mafiosi, in particular, have been depicted as honorable men in their own fashion. Their luxurious lifestyles have enabled them to serve as anti-Horatio Alger, exemplars of the American dream. The mafia's appeal is often ambivalent, exemplified by the fate that generally befalls even the greatest of the dons. Nevertheless, it suggests the subversive potential that popular culture possesses, its ability to provoke, cite, or agitate while challenging established verities. Organized criminal groups have had a long history in American society. Among the most popular were outlaw bands that ran with the Reno brothers in Indiana, or with Jesse James and Cole Younger, operated out of Missouri following the Civil War. Dime novels written in the latter stages of the 19th century, songs written by the likes of Woody Guthrie several decades later, and films starring Tyrone Power and Henry Fonda attested to the staying power of the outlaw image of Jesse and Frank James. The mafia, author Stephen Fox contends, first emerged in New Orleans following the Civil War, headed by Joseph Macheca, whose parents were Sicilian immigrants. During the 1880s, control of mafia operations in the city was taken over by Charles and Tony Matronga, who engaged in a power struggle with the Provenzano family. Around the turn of the century, Irish, Jewish, and Native American criminal societies still remained largely rooted in their own communities. In Chicago, syndicates controlled criminal activity, led by Montense's gambling ring and James Big Jim Colosimo's saloons and prostitution dens. In New York, Police Lieutenant Charles Becker wielded his vice squad to ensure protection payments. While no national organization had yet emerged, talk soon abounded of conspiratorial fixes of one kind or another. Such scuttlebutt thrived in the wake of the 1919 World Series, in which several members of the heavily favored Chicago White Sox cast their lot with gamblers to ensure Chicago's defeat at the hands of the Cincinnati Reds. The big fixer was reputed to be New York gambler Arnold Rothstein, later immortalized in F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. "He's a gambler." Gatsby hesitated, then added coolly, "He's the man who fixed the World Series back in 1919. Fixed the World Series," I repeated. The idea staggered me. It never occurred to me that one man could start to play with the faith of 50 million people with the single-mindedness of a burglar blowing a safe. "How did he happen to do that?" I asked after a minute. "He just saw the opportunity." "Why isn't he in jail?" "They can't get him, old sport. He's a smart man." Different kind of fix cropped up as a Volstead Act, which officially ushered in Prohibition. became effective on the morning of January 7, 1920. For the first time, illegal commodities began to be distributed on a nationwide basis, while the numbers of syndicates mushroomed. Smuggling, moonshining, and bootlegging all thrived. Important too was Benito Mussolini's takeover of power in Italy, his efforts to rein in the mafia, and the migration of mafiosi such as Joe Bonanno and Joe Profumo to the United States. Major East Coast syndicates, the Big Seven, were headed by underworld chieftains like Charles Lucky Luciano, Frank Costello, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, and Meyer Lansky. Most, along with Al Capone and important syndicate figures from the Midwest, appeared in Atlantic City in 1929 to attend what some analysts refer to as organized crime's first national convention. Others point to a 1928 meeting in Cleveland featuring mobsters from the East, South, and Midwest. The ties to political machines continued, with Italians, Poles, and other groups joining the Irish in establishing such connections. In Chicago, Capone performed that function for Italians and Sicilians. By the mid-1920s, Capone supplanted Johnny Torrio as the head of a vast syndicate. New York's top underworld figure was Giuseppe "the Boss" Masseria, who ran vice operations in Brooklyn and Manhattan. In 1930, Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano battled for control of the Italian underworld. Maranzano agreed to end the crime war, provided that Masseria's lieutenants, Lucky Luciano and Vito Page, 238 Genovese, murdered their chieftain. Chiusino then orchestrated the killing of Maranzano, who was demanding allegiance from family bosses nationwide. And subsequently, Luciano spearheaded policy, narcotic, and prostitution syndicates of prohibitions. Repeal crime bosses also took control of several liquor dealerships. Throughout this era, organized crime had a hand in a host of entertainment venues. Gangsters controlled top nightclubs such as Chicago's Grand Terrace, Harlem's Cotton Club, and Kansas City jazz joints along 12th and 18th Streets. Connected managers also shepherded musical greats like Duke Ellington and Louis Satchmo. Armstrong. Mobsters were likewise involved in the fight game, including boxing's most prestigious division before Joe Louis captured the heavyweight crown in 1937. Long afterwards, fixes, real and imagined, were hinted at throughout professional boxing, involving such luminaries as Jake LaMotta, Sugar Ray Robinson, Rocky Marciano, and Sonny Liston. The same held true for horse racing, with federal agents discovering in 1934 that over 300 horses had received narcotic injections to induce faster performances, aiding his racing sheets and the nationwide news service that reported on developments. At the tracks, Mo Annenberg became a powerful, organized crime figure before serving time for tax evasion. The New York Daily Mirror's gossip columnist, Walter Winchell, constantly received tidbits from mobsters like Capone and Frank Costello. Damon Runyon, William Randolph Hearst's top feature writer. Pen tales like Guys and Dolls. Eventually, a Broadway and Hollywood smash that portrayed mobsters as amiable in their own fashion. Entertainers prone to gambling, such as Joe E. Lewis, George Raft, and Milton Berle, became associated with connected figures. In the early 1930s, as the Great Depression afflicted the American landscape, a series of well-received gangster films were released by Hollywood, some based on real life events and underworld elements. Gangsters appeared in the guise of truck drivers, slum kids, Italian immigrants, stockyard laborers in such films as Quick Millions and The Secret Six. The Tales of Tommy Powers. Kay, played by Jimmy Cagney in Public Enemy. Tony Comati, starring Paul Muni in Scarface. Enrico, performed by Edward G. Robinson in Little Caesar. Read like the rise and fall of organized crime figures. Tommy emerged from the Irish ghetto, determined to live by his wits and to page 239 have it all. Expensive clothes, sleek cars, and penthouses. Tony, a Capone-like character, took over from his Torrio-styled boss before his own human frailties doomed him. Rico ascended to the very top of the organized crime ladder, but was felled by hubris, a figure out of a Greek epic tragedy, as Mordaunt Hall, a New York Times film critic, referred to him. The gangster film's early heyday was 1930 to 1932, but its impact lingered, as exemplified by its cynical, rapid-fire, topical quality, as well as its sharp dialogue and naturalistic approach. Gangsterism remained a popular genre, with over 900 such films purportedly made before 1970. Robinson and Cagney alone appeared in 29 and 16 gangster films, respectively, while FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover continued to deny the existence of organized crime. Some of its top figures faced criminal indictments. In late 1931, Capone was sentenced to 11 years in prison for tax evasion, a prosecution assisted by prominent Chicago businessmen. In public folklore, Eliot Ness and his Untouchables, later immortalized in the television series of the same name, brought Capone down. 5 years later, Luciano began serving a 30 to 50-year sentence, conviction obtained by New York City District Attorney Thomas E. Dewey. During that same period, legends regarding the crime-fighting prowess of the Bureau of Investigation, named the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 1935, mushroomed, with Hoover receiving considerable positive press as the nation's #1 G-man. That reputation hardly resulted from the FBI's efforts in reining in organized crime, but rather drew from tales of its agency's encounters with bank robbers like Charles Babyface Nelson, Q Pretty Boy Floyd, and John Dillinger. Organized crime's reach widened with a focus on gambling, labor racketeering, loan shark operations, narcotics, and prostitution. Increasingly, profits garnered from such illegal activities were invested in legitimate or semi-legitimate businesses, including hotels, restaurants, and entertainment enterprises. In Louisiana, Florida, and Nevada, mobsters from back east set up plush gambling casinos. Costello and Danny Phil Castell constructed the Beverly Club just outside of New Orleans, Scott, Miami Beach. Costello, Lansky, Siegel, and Joe Adonis financed the Colonial in another gambling showcase. Throughout the Miami Beach area, Costello also took control of horse tracks, dog tracks, and bookie joints. He purchased real estate, bars, hotels, restaurants, a radio station, and other commercial enterprises. Capone's influence spread through the Midwest and on to Dallas, Texas, where the newly elected sheriff, Steve Guthrie, was promised an annual income of $150,000 to allow clean operations to thrive. These included horse booking, slot machines, dice, numbers, everything, while Guthrie refused to go along, a Chicago hoodlum. Jacob Rubenstein, who referred to himself as Jack Ruby, remained in town. Las Vegas acquired still greater allure for mobsters, including Siegel, Lansky, and Capone. Among the hotel's organized crime helped to establish were the Flamingo, the Desert Inn, the Thunderbird, the Sands, the Riviera, the Stardust, the Dunes, and the Tropicana. During World War II and its aftermath, the federal government's response to organized crime proved highly contradictory. In 1945, Dewey, now serving as governor of New York, commuted Luciano's sentence, allegedly, because the mob boss had helped to prevent sabotage on the docks. Then, in 1950, Estes Kefauver, chairman of the Special Senate Committee to investigate organized crime in the United States, began holding public hearings throughout the land, reliance on the Fifth Amendment. I declined to answer on the grounds that it might tend to incriminate them, hardly served the organized figures well. Televised hearings, watched by an estimated 30 million viewers, captured mobsters like Costello, now head of the family previously spearheaded by Genovese and Luciano, in his unsteady hands. The Kefauver Committee reported dealings between Costello and top New York City politicians, including former district attorney and mayor William O'Dwyer. Costello was convicted of contempt of Congress and tax evasion, writing in The Nation in early 1957. Sidney Lenz discussed the overall makeup of organized crime. It is a loose federation, highly centralized in some respects, such as dealing out justice to its traitors, but decentralized in execution of business ventures. It is certainly not a membership organization. It is more of a loosely knit force with tens of thousands of fellow travelers. Talk of a more elaborate crime structure soon developed. A police raid in Appalachian, New York, in November 1957 resulted in the holding of Genovese, Joe Bonanno, Carlo Gambino, and several other syndicate bigshots. Promises of deportations and tax examinations proved illusory, but a conspiracy trial began in May 1959 involving many of the participants at the Appalachian gathering. The issue of ethnicity was not far from the surface, as indicated by a Newsweek analysis. Actually, the old mafia, with its blood feuds and black hands, has changed. It no longer is the Murder, Inc. division that enforced mob discipline. The nation's crime syndicates are not directed by a sort of underworld holding company. The group doesn't call itself the mafia, but others do, because most of the top executives are Sicilians and other Southern Italians. The Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, headed by John McClellan, explored organized crime's ties to labor organizations, particularly the Teamsters. John F. Kennedy was a member of the subcommittee, while his younger brother, Robert, served as chief counsel. Discussion of the mafia appeared more frequently in popular publications, while academic explorations of the subject heightened. The Enemy Within, written by Robert F. Kennedy, was published in 1960, relating his involvement with McClellan's subcommittee while focusing on Dave Beck and Jimmy Hoffa of the Teamsters. In 1963, Joseph Valachi, testifying before McClellan's subcommittee, traced the evolution of organized crime, which he referred to as the Cosa Nostra, while focusing on developments in New York City. Valachi also discussed the Appalachian meeting, reputedly held by the Mafia's Grand Council or the Commission of the Cosa Nostra, thus seemingly verifying organized crime's existence. Following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in Dallas on November 22, 1963, talk of organized crime involvement proliferated, including participation by Louisiana Don Carlos Marcello. Following Valachi's testimony, media interest in the mafia immediately heightened once more, and a firestorm arose regarding the publication of the Valachi papers. Charges that ethnic groups, particularly Italians and Jews, were being slandered arose, and 22 publishers turned down Ma's book before Putnam agreed to print it in 1969. It proved to be a bestseller. Did another book published that year, Mario Puzo's The Godfather. In contrast to Mickey Spillin's hard-boiled approach, Puzo devised a businessman protagonist who ran any number of illegal enterprises. Simply put, Puzo's heroic anti-hero controlled a mafia organization, and he did so relying on long-standing relationships and family blood ties. Puzo's approach involved returning to earlier characterizations of organized crime as ethnically driven, chafed by a distinctive Italianness. The Godfather also employed, as Dwight C. Smith, Jr. noted, the word mafia scores of times, mafioso 11 times, and Cosa Nostra twice. The Godfather traced Vito Corleone's rise to organized crime preeminence and the syndicate's subsequent takeover by his son Michael. Page 240, the reluctant new Don, who proved to be as ruthless as his father. Reviewers perceived the book to be about America's most powerful and least understood subculture, the mafia. Fred Cook insisted that if anyone wants to know about the power of the mafia, Mario Puzo's sprawling, irresistible tale brings the reality home more vividly and realistically than the drier stuff of fact ever can. The Godfather is deeply embedded in reality. But most important, Smith argued, was why The Godfather resonated so fully. Its success was a matter of timing. The public was ripe for a book that would demonstrate the reality of the 20-year campaign of the law enforcement community to depict organized crime as an evil, alien, conspiratorial entity comprised of Italians bearing the mafia label. While the first two cinematic versions of The Godfather proved to be huge commercial and artistic successes, the return of the gangster genre had not awaited Puzo's best-selling novel. Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde was released in 1967 and portrayed Depression-era bank robbers Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, played by radiant Faye Dunaway and the dashing Warren Beatty, in a heroic light. However, the box office smashes that Godfather's I and II proved to be, in addition to Francis Ford Coppola's receipt of Best Oscars for film direction in 1972 and 1974, resulted in a new spate of gangster films like The Untouchables. Also appearing in books and on film were the memoirs of organized crime figures, including those of Joe Bonanno, Jimmy the Weasel Frediano, Willie Sutton, and others. Before 1980, only Valachi and Frediano had reneged on the mafia code of silence or omerta. Gay Talesi's 1971 book, Honor Thy Father, had benefited from a series of interviews undertaken with Joe Bonanno's son Bill, a crime figure in his own right. An increasing number of figures did so, including Sammy the Bull Gravano, one time lieutenant of the Gambino crime family, and other high-ranking members of various families. From the 1970s onward, organized crime spread its tentacles still further, delving into child prostitution, banking, and environmental schemes. Reports indicated, however, that the mafia's influence had lessened thanks to defections by key players turned government witnesses, deadly internecine squabbles, and concerted prosecutorial action by local and federal officials. Newer bands of organized criminals emerged, including outlaw motorcycle groups, black gangs, and new immigrant groups. The bikers specialized in synthetic drugs popular during the period, including speed, PCP, and LSD. At the same time, black hoodlums shifted from gambling to drugs, including heroin and cocaine. Southeast Asian, Caribbean, South American, and Eastern European groups, among others, also became involved in the sale of narcotics and arms. All appeared in cinematic guise as foils for top stars like Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Harrison Ford, and Michael Douglas. No, it's time for sleep. See you tomorrow.
Bye.